Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for turning out on this very specific topic that we are going to discuss. Of course, after your discussion, cybersecurity, I think another aspect, another threat that's looming around all of us, is climate transition. And as we look at what's going on across the globe, we are witnessing a number of disasters going through a number of countries which are dealing with economic losses which are attributed towards environmental threats which are causing not just economic damage, but I think it's also ruining the development of many of the countries who are seeking to develop for many years now. There is a whole international movement where UNFCCC has been coordinating the climate objectives of various countries. India has not been too behind that, so we already have India's nationally determined contribution, which was submitted to the UN body. We know that India has taken up a commitment to be net zero by 2070, although we are hoping that under the Paris Agreement there would be a more rigorous ambition setting that may happen in the future. We have very ambitious renewable energy goals, as you would have also witnessed. Today's topic, very pertinent, how's the entire climate transition leading into the public sector utilities. What's the thought process with which they are organizing themselves as they balance between the affordability of services that they provide, reliability of services that is expected out of them, and how should they balance the transition that is requiring them to relook at their business models, that is requiring them to transition to newer technologies and business models, that is looking up to them for a just transition, which means while you're working towards transitioning to new roles, new technologies, new business models, how do you ensure that you're taking the society with you? How are you making sure that you're upskilling and reskilling the workforce that you have been working with? How are you safeguarding employment from those perspectives as well? So there are a number of perspectives that become correlated with climate transition. And yes, the expectation is that all the companies, every sector would need to evolve to align themselves to a net zero world in the future. And as soon as they are able to figure out what's important to them, how can they transition, how soon can they make that transition, and how relevant therefore they will be in the future is entirely dependent on how they would remodel themselves. So with that, my esteemed guests here, Sanjeev and Arup, both come from their organizations where Sanjeev has been dealing at the top with how one of the largest oil companies in India is looking at this transition. And it's heartening to see the kind of mergers and acquisitions that IOCL is doing today, the kind of investments that they're making into cleaner technologies as well, while making sure that there is continuity in terms of the expectation that IOCL, for example, has from the public to be able to provide services in the transition as well. So let me first look at Sanjeev to maybe put his thoughts together around how IOCL is looking at this transition, how they are going to balance their core business vis-a-vis the new business models that IOCL is continuously evolving, and what does that mean for IOCL's customers in the future? What does it mean for IOCL employees in the future? I think Sanjeev, if you could throw some light there.
Yeah, thank you. So I think one question which became very predominant post-COVID was energy security. Probably in India is very easy to understand energy security because we are always energy starved. But the Western world first time learned that there may be times when there is no energy. And to many of us surprised Germany, which wanted to go, they started going to the coal power. So we were very clear as a national oil company as well as one of the biggest company that first and foremost for Indian oil and oil companies is to ensure that kind of growth engine on which government is pushing India's economy should not in any way get affected adversely because there is no energy. And secondly, unlike developed countries where one energy is replacing another one, India basket is expanding so fast that there is a scope for every kind of energy is there. Now, one question when we were debating with the Indian Oil as part of my own job as corporate strategy was, is EV, or for that matter green hydrogen, is it a big threat? And considering our turnover of almost 10 lakh crore rupees, what would it dent if we don't do anything now? Maybe wait for some more time and they all become very important. So our debate to get the buying in from the top management was that the one challenge with all of us have is nobody can time a good idea when it's going to become very big. So keeping that in mind, finally we could make our management agree that what we should do, one, let's identify good partners. Though Indian Oil has one of the biggest R&D center in India, and we do a lot of investment, but we also realize that all the best brains in the world we can't own. A lot of good work is happening globally. We are agnostic to the geography, and we should identify those partners. Today, our credibility is one that whoever wants to tie up with probably would not deny to be a partner of Indian Oil. That is the second thing we did. Third we did was that 3 years back I didn't know what is lithium-ion battery. Today I understand the whole ecosystem because we are entering into those kind of spaces. So let our employees get that skill set. Let's form strategic alliances. Let's start somewhere. Only thing left would be scaling it up. And probably that game we understand very well. As Indian Oil, we can scale up any business as fast as we want. And that what struck out with the management and our board, which also has government director, which also has a lot of independent directors. And we started forming joint ventures, starting from a company called Lanjatech. Lanjatech was a company which is US-based company. And it converts carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide through microbes into third generation biofuel. So again, we were transforming our company from oil to gas and now to energy. So any form of energy, we want to be there. Though we still write Indian Oil, but it's not a day away where someday we may write Indian Energy Company, may not be oil company. Anyway, we're still not oil company now. We are very big, after GAIL, second biggest player in India for gas and petrochemicals. Second, then we started looking at the battery space also. And we felt that battery space probably should be which is very suiting to Indian requirement. And that's where we formed a joint venture with an Israel-based company, which is Indian Oil Free Energy Private Limited is the joint venture we formed, which is into aluminum air battery technology. Why aluminum air? Because aluminum is abundantly available in India. Then we also started looking at other forms of battery. And now we are working with Panasonic. Probably you may be, if you are reading about Indian Oil, Panasonic agreed and finally chose us as a partner to come in India. Then we also formed joint venture with L&T and Renew Power for green hydrogen. And then we also recently formed a joint venture with Sun Mobility for battery swapping, where our partners are Bosch and Vitol. Vitol, probably some of you may be knowing, is 5 times bigger than Indian Oil. It's a global Fortune 100 company. So what we are doing is we are entering into all spaces across. We are entering very big into biofuels. We are entering into renewable power. So what we are doing is we are preparing Indian Oil across spectrum of all kind of energies, and whichever energy would need scaling it up, we'll do it. So that tomorrow our future is not at risk if oil becomes a marginal player, which we don't expect for next 20, 30 years. But a small denting through all these new energy also would have been catastrophic if we haven't invested in this country.
Right. Well, thanks, Sanjeev. I mean, it's inspiring that there are new business models being explored. I mean, PSUs traditionally have focused on core business, but I think it's really heartening to hear how new technologies, new mergers, acquisitions are happening, and really accelerating the way in which India's transition to net zero is going to happen. And with that, I think let me get in Arup on as Terry BCSD's work has been pretty inspiring again on how they are working with a number of PSUs, but also largely private sector and governments, to look at the transition. So Arup, your thoughts on how you are looking at this transition, what role technology and finance is playing, probably if you can elaborate more on that. Thank you.
No, absolutely. But Thank you so much, Manpreet, and it's a, it's a, so to speak, a fanboy moment for me, because the work on the energy transitions and the role of PSUs. I have had the fortune to work with the former chairman of Indian Oil, Mr. R.K. Narang, and who was instrumental to even instill the thought within a 50-year-old think tank to look at energy transitions. One, Sanjeev ji, talked about the energy transitions and the Paris Agreement. I would share with you a good news that the India's commitments under the Paris Agreement, we are one of the G20 countries who have fulfilled their commitments before time. We had committed that the emission intensity would reduce 33 to 35% by 2030. In 2021, the emission intensity reduction was 34%. We had said that we will be 40% of the electricity from non-fossil fuel energy sources by 2030. We have achieved 42% in 2022. Today, as we speak, many of you would have seen on the television as well that Honorable Prime Minister is addressing the United Nations Secretary General's summit in New York, where India is being looked up as a global leader who would solve the puzzle of how energy transitions and meeting the development objectives would be important. The goods and services, what we need for our modern day, modern day living, requires the manufacturing and the heavy industries, and which is where the role of the kinds of energy input that goes into the manufacturing becomes so important. Mind you, globally, amongst the top 200 large organizations who have their carbon footprint the highest, there are 3 Indian PSUs: NTPC, ONGC, and Coal India. We in TERI, we believe that India today is stands at the cusp of providing a narrative, what Sanjeev ji talked about, on how energy security, energy transition, new job opportunities, skilled young generation can all be put together to bring out a new transformational effect. It is estimated that for the energy transitions, every year we would need $4 to $5 trillion. And from what we see, the access to this new capital that is required for the new manufacturing capacity, for the new biorefineries, for the new steel making, for the new cement and concrete making, will come with a sustainability lens. And here the role of the public sector undertakings to not just implement some of these principles into the context of India, but also to provide a narrative that what does sustainability mean for an emerging economy like India along the Atmanirbhar Bharat vision is a very critical role that the public sector undertaking and the public sector enterprises would look like. The way the Indian railways have for example are implementing electrification for all their the freight and passenger movement, for their traction and non-traction load, is today a world example. the cement and the concrete industry today, is a world example in terms of, being a global benchmark on energy, specific energy consumption and carbon footprint.
I think just
last
cognizant of time.
Yeah, and the last point, I think, very recently, I think, 6 days ago, with the Honorable Minister of Steel, Teddy was the knowledge partner, and we launched the Indian steel sector decarbonization roadmap. The role of the public sector undertakings for demand creation for low carbon, zero carbon steel is so important. The Indian public sector undertakings, has been the flag bearer of, the Make in India, campaign, where the GFR rules have been modified for each of the procurement policies of the public sector undertakings. Today, the transformational agenda would need to incorporate, sustainable products, zero carbon products into the procurement strategies for the public sector undertakings. So it's not just, the production of energy which has, low carbon footprint, but also in terms of, putting forward, a credible, platform for the demand generation for such.
Right. Thanks, Arup. I don't know, do we have 2 more minutes? Or? All right, so I think we'll conclude then. So I think we heard from our esteemed speakers on the fact that yes, there is a transition that's happening. We all need to remodel our business models. Companies like IOCL are taking pioneering action today, and I think what we expect is all PSUs will think about how they are going to transition. In case there is a requirement on government incentives, I think this is the time where we need to think about and also then lobby around what is needed for each and every PSU in the country to transition to net zero in the future. I'll leave you all with that thought. Thank you very much. Thank you.